Hello, friends. Welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by Deirdre Tshien, and we're going to talk about something that sounds counterintuitive. So as soon as I read this on Deirdre's profile, I was like, I need to interview you, please. And something you say is why repurposing content is a waste of time. And I've been in business for, I don't know, 8 years now. And most people, they talk about repurposing being king. And I've never heard anyone say this because I'm an avid content creator and I don't know how many versions of Suze ago created a lot of stuff. So I don't tend to repurpose a lot of my stuff because I've got the back catalog and I figure if you come across it and you like it, you can make your way back. But I've never had anyone actually actively say that. So I'm really excited about this conversation. But before we begin, the most important thing, at least to me visually, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll get it. If you're listening, then this is an invitation to come find me on YouTube, Suzanne Kohlberg, the Nope Coach. You have a sloth.
I do.
Tell
yes.
us about the sloth, please.
Yes. So our sloth here, his name is Monty Mossbelly. He's our mascot over here at Capsho. And basically it really stemmed from like the whole purpose behind Capsho, and probably the conversation that we're going to be going into quite a bit is how do we as humans who have very full lives and, not just the business, because sometimes the business feels all consuming. But I think, we all have very full lives. How do we actually find ways to be intelligently lazy? And so that's where the sloth came from. He's a reminder for everyone that, it is okay. In fact, we want to aspire to be intelligently lazy in everything that we do.
I love that because in a time where we're more productive than ever, and a lot of the messages are hustle and grind and do more and do more and do more.
Oh
and
my
people
gosh,
are
yes.
across so many platforms, and there's always something new coming up. Like, it's exhausting. And to have a mascot that's intelligently lazy, I'm like, I'm here for it. So you mentioned Capsho. So just for the listeners, can you give a little bit of a breakdown about, what that is in case they're not familiar with it?
Yeah, so Capsho is, it's really for entrepreneurs who are creating some kind of long form audio video content. So think podcasts, think YouTubers, even if you do webinars or training videos. So basically you upload your audio video file, and then in minutes, Capsho creates a whole bank of content for you, like social media posts, your LinkedIn newsletters, your blog posts, all of that. Which is why it was funny when we hopped on, Suzanne, and you were like, I want to talk about why content repurposing is a waste of time, which I have thoughts on this. I was like, yeah, it's going to be really counterintuitive because what Capsho does in a way it helps people repurpose their content. But yeah, there's kind of like a whole roundabout reason why we ended up there, even though I have thoughts on the repurposing angle.
But even if you think about it, Capsho, if you upload it, yes, you're repurposing it, but there's a difference between you repurposing it, listening back to your episode, pulling out the snippets, writing a blog post, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And then being, intelligently lazy.
Yes.
That's going to be, and then as in having something else help you to do it. And 100%. I think that's the point too, because originally, like my first toe in the pool of entrepreneurship, I was like a personal assistant, executive assistant, like dog's body for this entrepreneur. And they would record long form, like webinar type presentations. And this was way before there was all the AI and tools that there are now. And one of my roles was to transcribe that, like listen back to her replays, type it out. It was exhausting. It used to take so long. And I remember her getting really frustrated with me because she was like, it's taking you like 4 hours to like transcribe this 1 hour presentation. And I was thinking, because I need to pause to type and pause to go back. And also that she had an accent, and, when it isn't your native listening, sometimes it's like, what word did she mean? So you need to go back, re-listen, go back, re-listen. So it would take, 3 or 4 listens. Then once I had it, she wanted it into a blog post, and then a transcription of an audio doesn't naturally go to a blog post because there's pauses and there's filler words that make sense when you're listening, but when you're reading it, it's like, what? Like if you say the same sentence. It
makes no sense. Yeah.
So like I thought I was quite efficient because at the end, like for 4 times the amount of time, she had the transcript. She also wanted me to edit it. So I was editing, taking out the ums, ahs, buts, like by hand while I was doing this, and turning it into a blog that was readable. So maybe that's another reason I don't like repurposing, because I just was burnt.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you hit the nail on the head. Like even in my journey of how we even got to Capsho, it was because we were doing so much of that. Like, my background, how many years ago I was a coach, I was helping e-commerce business owners with their digital marketing. And I had a podcast that was actually one of my first forays into podcasting, because a mentor told me, you've got to start publishing, you've got to start getting your message out there. So I was like, okay, surely this podcasting thing is easy, right? Like, it's a marketing tool that will magically get found and my business is going to blow up. Which, if anyone that's Australian sarcasm for you. But it's it just didn't happen that way. And that was and I was spending so much time literally doing kind of what you were saying. Like, luckily by then we did have things that would automatically transcribe, but that was kind of it, right? Like, everything else we were trying to I started with, and I think you might remember these days, Suzanne, where we're like all the rage to do like audiograms and then it was like, episode just dropped, go check it out. And like, no one cared, right? Literally no one cared about that. And then I would spend all this time, to your point, like transcribing and then trying to pick out the juicy bits and going, okay, well, now I'm going to clip this part, or I'm going to do a different reel, because I was trying to be kind of creative back then and be like, okay, well, I want to be specific to platforms, which I do fundamentally believe in, but we'll get into that.
Actually,
but
that's a really good point. Make sure we come back to that, because one of my pet peeves is when I see, if I am on one show, like something, and I see the TikTok banner or the YouTube banner on something else, and I'm like, you're just so like, anyway, sorry, keep going.
That's not being intelligently lazy. That's just being lazy. But yeah, so like I was spending all of this time trying to, in inverted commas, hack the algorithm and do all this stuff. And it was just like, you know what, this whole like repurposing game is just not worth it. It is just taking up way too much more time for any ROI that I was getting from it. And so that's kind of where I got on my like high horse about how repurposing, even though at the time you had the Gary V's and the, whoever like talking about, that's like, you just got to be doing that. You've got to be getting content out there. And it's like every minute of every day, you've got to be, I was just like, no, this is just not worth, because it honestly burnt me and my team out just trying to keep up with the repurposing, even though it was meant to be easier, getting on that hamster wheel. So,
but I suppose, sorry to interrupt you, but what's really coming to mind is there's a difference between repurposing and spamming. And I think sometimes, like as soon as I sign up to someone's newsletter and all I get is new on the podcast, new on the blog, I'm like, if I wanted to listen to your podcast or read your blog, I could do that. Or I already am. Yeah. I don't need to be directed via an email. So like if that's your business plan, like you do you or whatever, and I'd love to hear the return on investment. But when I send a newsletter, sometimes I do mention my podcast, not often, because, if there's something pertinent to the newsletter I'm actually writing, I've got an episode, I'll link that. But if it's just here's a clip and new on the show, I don't find that useful. It's information to clutter up my inbox, especially people who are avid content creators and put out a lot, because it's just like, unless I really like you, it will be an unsubscribe. Because as I said, if I wanted to subscribe to your podcast, I would, especially if it's just new on or this just dropped, as you said. But if you had a point you were making and then you're like, I'm going to talk more about this on the podcast or listen for an in-depth conversation, that to me feels like a breadcrumb trail, like Hansel and Gretel style, that I want to follow, rather than just here's the latest, because we're bombarded with here's the latest. It's exhausting.
100%. Yeah. And going back to, because I definitely want to touch on this around, all the different platforms or distribution channels and, leveraging them for what they're intended for. Even when you were saying, oh, well, I transcribe and then I'll put that on blog posts. Like I used to talk to a few people who that was literally what they would do. Their blog post was literally the transcription. And I was like, how in the world? Like you're kind of, I kind of get it, because to them it's like, well, I just want to leverage the power of SEO, which is debatable that's actually even happening. But like, but they're not actually making it at all readable or usable or valuable for the end audience. And so for me, and, just to talk about just to bring Capsho a little bit into it, when we were thinking about what is it that, we're kind of repurposing, but we're repurposing it in a way where, hey, let's actually make it very very contextual to the platform. So we could have on this, and I've listened to, other episodes of yours, Suzanne, where you can have pretty varied topics within a conversation, right? Like it can kind of meander a little bit, which is, I love that. And that is what you would expect from a medium like this. Like when you're listening to a conversation, you expect that it's a conversation. It's going to kind of go everywhere. But when you're reading a blog post, you kind of just want to get to the point. Like you're not there to read a meandering conversation, right? And so it's kind of like, okay, if you're going to repurpose in a different meaning, repurposing needs to be, again, in an intelligently lazy way where you go, okay, if people want to read a blog post, they're going to want to be, it's going to have to be very topic specific. It's going to be just have to get to the point, and it's going to be value led, like just go bang, bang, bang. This is what you're going to get from this. And so I think that there is definitely a difference, to your point about the meaning of repurposing and how you use it in the ways depending on the platform that you really want to be on.
I think that's such a great point. Are you repurposing to just throw it up there and hopefully get some SEO cred? And is that even working, to your point?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you making use of the platform as it stands? I like podcasting because I love the long form meandering. Let's talk about this. You've got a sloth. Oh, what happened on the weekend? That's what I like to do. And a lot of people who listen, who prefer blogs or the messages I get about it, they want, as I said, the blogs is, here's the 3 tips to getting more traffic to your podcast, or here is 4 hacks to make the most of your morning, or whatever. Like blogs tend to, as you said, here it is.
Yeah.
I personally don't like that for me to consume. Like if I'm going to consume some content, I prefer to listen to podcasts while I'm walking or doing the dishes or traveling or whatever. And then when I read, I want to read something off the wall, fairy, fantasy, paranormal. I don't want to read hacks and tips personally. And I think that's the other thing too, when you're consuming people's content in whichever way, how big is their team? Because I think sometimes people with, like, as you said, Gary Vee or Tony Robbins or whoever it is, Brene Brown, they've got a massive team. So they have a department that takes care of each of these things. So when you try and like, I'm going to be on all the platforms, I'm going to be across everything, and you're a solopreneur, that is not intelligently lazy. It's, what's the opposite? No. Like ridiculously inefficient? I don't know, inefficient?
And you're definitely not saying nope, right? Like that's the thing. I think this is what I've learned in marketing, like the biggest, because I get asked this a lot, like what are the biggest lessons I've learned in marketing or even business and stuff? And it's like, actually, it's all strategies work, right? Like let's just put it out there. Like anything works, but it only works when you actually commit to it and you double down on it. And I think that's where a lot of us go wrong, is because we hear all the different strategies. So we have to like implement all the things, and then we do it for about, 3 days. And then we're like, this isn't working. And then we stop it, which is also like, it's like you do have to stop things, but not at the risk of, the consistency and actually getting results. And I think that's like the most powerful thing about what you do and talk about, Suzanne, like saying no. It's like every time now I've actually shut myself off from like learning new strategy. Like I used to be on this like tear of, okay, I've got to learn all the things. And I'm going to like implement, and I just like, again, burned myself out. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to read any new like businessy books. I'm not going to listen to those types of podcasts. Like to your point, I want to listen to other things that maybe creatively open my mind up to other, parts of what it is that I'm interested in. Because more and more, it's like we're so inundated with all this stuff. We have to start saying no to all the things, but we have to commit to what is the one thing that, and again, I was having this conversation with like even Alex and others, where it was like, again, everything in marketing works, but what is that you really enjoy doing? Like, are you actually a really social person? And so social media is just a no-brainer. Or are you like me, where I'm like, oh, it really takes a lot for me to be social and to, want to go into like have conversations and stuff. And it's like, okay, social media is probably not going to be the thing that is going to drive an ROI for me, but maybe it's going to be blogging or podcasting or something else. And just double down on that. And just stay the course, be consistent, and that will actually yield results. I truly believe that. So, anyway, I don't know how we got into that topic,
I love
but
that point that you've really raised. Excellent point there. Everything works, but is it the best for you? And I
Yes.
think that's the thing. Everybody on the internet is crowing about do this, do podcasting, do blog writing, do guest speaking, do TikTok dancing, whatever it is,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
because it has worked for them. Now,
Yes.
the chance of me pointing and dancing on TikTok, I'd sooner die. Like, you know,
Well, I'd like to
chances
see
are
that
I'd be
happen.
kidnapped and, you know, or being what do you call it, blackmailed. But, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you know, is it the best for you? Because if
Yeah.
part of you doesn't enjoy that type of content, if you don't consume that type of content, is your audience even there? I don't
Yeah.
think my audience is watching TikTok. I could be wrong. Feel free to send me email, info@suzannecolberg.com. Tell me you love TikTok. You know, but where is the people that you're trying to reach? And also
Yeah.
too, short form content, like saying no, setting boundaries, having difficult conversations is challenging, not impossible, but to do in like a 15-second or less. What do you call it? Where you
Yeah.
just have me sitting at the desk and the words at the top or whatever. And it's just
Yes.
like, it's deep. It takes the time to listen, to percolate, to consider, to think. And yeah, if you don't enjoy it in some way, like, but then sometimes people go, well, I don't enjoy exercising, but I know movement's good for me. But there's a difference between your
Yeah.
point to commitment and consistency, not I tried it once and it didn't work, and
Yeah.
doubling down on I'm going to do this versus I'm going to try everything half-assedly, do none of it well, and then be convinced that there's
Yeah.
something fundamentally wrong with me in business.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that people like at the other side of the phone or the screen or the whatever, like they can pick up on the fact that you're not loving it, right? Like, so even if Suzanne, like you're like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to give into this freaking TikTok thing, and I'm going to do, like, people are going to know just by watching you that it's like, okay, Suzanne does not want to be, yeah, that's not fun for anyone, right? So,
It makes
like,
me
I
think
think
of
that's the
school
thing.
plays. Like it's end of year here, and my
Yeah,
kids are just
yeah,
doing their end of year stuff. And
yeah,
you can see my daughter, she's dialing it in. She doesn't want to be there. She's not interested in doing the Christmas dance. Like it was amusing to me to watch. But there was this other kid who was like, this is my moment. And they're
yeah,
doing exactly the same dance, but it's just
yes,
about the like, and you know, I wasn't actually watching my kid all that much because she wasn't entertaining to watch. She didn't want to be there. It was hot. And she was just like, I've committed to this and mum's made me because we said yes, you know.
yeah,
Whereas the
yeah,
people who are like, even though they might not be as skilled or fluid or coordinated, but their passion is there. And I think when you're online, when you
mm,
see someone who's podcasting or, you know, doing whatever it is and they love it, their energy shines through. Energetically, they're dialed in. And to this
yes,
point, back to your repurposing stuff,
yeah,
long ago, I wrote a post that went, you know, viral for me. And my business coach at the time said, like, just schedule that to go up every month or every 3 months or whatever it was. And what was interesting to me was when I was like behind it and in line and very excited about that message, it got tons of feedback, comments, whatever, every single time. Even people who
mhm.
I knew who'd read it last time because they commented on it last time were like, this is so amazing. But the days where I
Yeah,
was like, yeah, here's this shit again to keep my algorithm up, you know, because we do that,
yes,
even though the
yeah,
post was exactly the same, crickets. So I think there's
yeah,
something to be said for like I say I'm woo adjacent. Like I love oracle cards. I don't do crystals in the bra. But you know, energy kind of stuff as opposed to
yeah.
like here's my dialing it in thing.
It's so true. And that comes back to squarely like why content repurposing is a waste of time, because at the end of the day, even if you use all the tools that are out there, you know, AI makes all this so much simpler. Like if you actually don't bring, to your point, the energy behind what it is that you're saying by way of what's getting like what the main messages are that's actually getting repurposed to be amplified, and you don't believe or quite engage with the platform in the way that it's meant to be engaged with, like you're never going to get whatever it is, the engagement, the comments, the likes, the ROI essentially from that. So why put the time in to do that just to feel like you've checked off a box on your your to-do list for what? Like it's just not worth anyone's time. So I do believe, just to round out, like I do believe in repurposing. I believe in repurposing in an intelligently lazy way, and I believe in repurposing with a purpose, and a strategy, your strategy. I'm not saying there is one strategy, but your strategy behind it. That's what I believe in.
So have you got like a suggestion? Can you give us an example of a intelligently lazy way of repurposing? Because that would be for people to listen to. Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like it was kind of like what I was saying about the blog post, but even if we talk about another medium, so let's say we talk about social media, what I used to do, as I said, was it, I went from, the audiograms and the, episode just dropped kind of post, which got nothing to like, okay. And then I went like full 180, right. To be like, okay, well, this isn't working. So I'm going to be very strategic on each single platform. And so at the time I was literally on, it was like, I was trying to be on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, four different platforms. And I was creating content for all four of them, but based on like the one, so my podcast episode would have been about a particular, theme. And then I'd be like, okay, well, yeah, TikTok is going to be maybe a dance thing. I don't know. And then Reels is going to be like a pointy thing. And then, so I was creating all of this content that was meant to be in my mind. I was like, hey, I'm being smart about this because I'm being like strategic about the platform. And I'm like actually leaning into what that platform is looking for. But like, I didn't want to be there. Let's be honest. Like, I didn't want to be doing those things. And if I was getting comments, I'm like, I'm like, I love you, but I don't really have the time to be like on here commenting. But I didn't know what to say other than 100%. You're right. Like, that was just wasn't my jam. And it's nothing personal against anyone where it is. I have so much respect for people who like love that stuff because I just don't. And I think that after a while, it's like that not only burnt me out, but I think, people on the other side could see that it's like, I'm just not really enjoying this stuff. So, so I went from, one end of the spectrum to the other. And now I've kind of like, kind of tried to like go in the middle to be like, okay, how can and I talked to a lot of like, and we're talking about social media specifically here, but like social media strategists like Katie Brinkley and stuff, who's just amazing. And she has like an ethos of like how to actually like, you should be posting less. And I'm like, please tell me more because yes, I want to be posting less. And she's got a really great strategy where, again, you can still leverage the theme and the premise of what it is that you spoke about in your podcast, let's say, or your YouTube video or your training or whatever it is, but quote unquote, repurposing it in a way where you're actually, you're doing it like with, as I said, a purpose. So for example, her 4 posts, should I quickly go through that?
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Context. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, the 4 posts, the first post is like, okay, it's all about how do we cast out the fishing net to be like, this is the thing that I'm talking about. Who care? Who here, like raise your hand and tell me if you care about this topic, right? So it's like one of those really, it's kind of an opinionated statement. And it's just meant to get people to be like, oh, I agree or disagree. So, when you see those like things especially on Facebook where it's like purple background, it's just one statement, like Facebook groups are dead. And people are like, what? No, they're not. And then,
and you go to the comments for the
yeah. So it gets the engagement and it gets, but it's and this is only for people, by the way. I'm talking to people who, in this example, like Facebook, they want to engage on Facebook, right? We're making those assumptions, right? So let's say you are that. Then you're like, okay, well, now when I'm getting this engagement, I actually know who cares about Facebook groups, whether or not they're dead. And then it follows up with a value post of like, okay, well, I asked this is actually my opinion about it. Facebook groups aren't dead, or they are dead for XYZ reasons, right? So that's like kind of the next post. And again, people are commenting and they're saying like agree or disagree or whatever it is. The third post is then about, she calls it a community post. And this is where you actually start to share your own stories about that particular topic. This is where you let people into you and your life, kind of like the story you told about your daughter, right? Like that is you letting people into to know about this little thing that that they may not have known about you before. And then the 4th post is then the call to action post. So here people have actually followed you along the journey about a topic that they care about. They've raised their hand to learn more about it, and then they've gotten an outcome because they care about it. Now that to me, and we've actually talking about that strategy, we've actually built that strategy into Capsho. So it actually creates those posts for you. But that to me is like actually repurposing with a purpose. As long as, again, caveats, you want to be on Facebook and, you want to actually, you care about the engagement and you're willing to take those conversations even further, maybe it's in the DMs to like uncover more needs or whatever it is. But, that that to me is like not just going, okay, well, I'm gonna like dance on, TikTok, whatever. Like I actually know what outcome it is that I want. I know the journey that I want to take people on, and I'm repurposing because I'm still leveraging the same theme and premise, but it's in a very different way. I'm not just regurgitating my
Yes,
podcast
it's not
episode
just
back at
here,
you.
this is new, this is this. It's, as you said,
Yeah.
it's taking people on a journey. It has some consideration behind it. And it has, I loved the, casting the net, fishing, like who's interested in this? And then,
Yes.
some, here's my take, personal story and call to action.
Yeah.
It's a series. It's not just brand new or flashing light. But also,
Yeah.
to your point, where do you want them to go next? Like, are you inviting them into a DM conversation? My listeners will know, this might be new for you, but I believe unsolicited DMs are the dick pics of the social media world. I can't stand it
Gosh,
personally.
no. Yeah.
So I
Please do not
personally
do that.
would never encourage people to DM me, though people are most welcome to email me. And, but whatever it is in your business, you tell people how to contact you. You teach people how to treat you. You teach them the next step. And if somebody does DM me and it's like a legitimate DM, I would, redirect them to my email. Like, but most of the time, the DMs aren't legitimate. There's someone trying to sell you some shit or get you on the first page of
Yeah.
Google, or who have read my pinned post that says, I don't answer DMs, and linked the contact page for my website, who have then commented, check your others folder. And I'm like, if you haven't even given me the time, like, but, to your point, what is the next logical step? What are you wanting to bring them into? And as you said, if you're not into Facebook and you don't want to engage, then maybe that's not the next, the logical step for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Capsho, obviously, because we're going to hear more about this because I'm interested, but you said can help you out for those 4 steps. What other sorts of things it can do? So if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, I'm not into Facebook, what else can it do?
So it does, from a platform perspective, it does do the 4 posts for Facebook, for LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a bit different. So instead of that first post being an agree or disagree statement, it's actually LinkedIn poll, because that's what actually works for LinkedIn. Yeah. So it'll actually give you like, here's a question and the 4 options that you could create on your LinkedIn poll.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it does also do Instagram, and it'll have like because obviously, if for people who are on Instagram, I'm actually not, but Reels is obviously the thing that they still really like to push. So we also actually inside Capsho do video clipping. So basically, if you upload a video, it'll clip for you, and that can actually be the first kind of fishing net that you put out, and then you can follow the rest of the 4 post strategy. So that's from a social media perspective. We also do LinkedIn newsletters. So a lot of times our users, and what we recommend is for the value post, so the second post, is to actually do a LinkedIn newsletter if you're on LinkedIn. So it does that. And then it does blog posts, which is very targeted to a specific topic. Again, to what we were talking about. It's like, it's not going to just regurgitate the whole podcast.
It's not going to give you the what do you call it, transcript. Here you go, where they went all over the shop.
Exactly. No, it's going to be like, okay, Suzanne, choose what topic you actually want Capsho to focus in on, and then that's what it'll write about. Because it'll actually tell you, hey, here are the 5 topics that I've picked that the AI has kind of seen that your episode has been about. Just choose one to actually hone in on. So it'll do blog posts. As I said, it does video clipping. That's also based on the topic that you choose. We also do by the time this episode goes live, we'll have image generation as well. So if you're on YouTube, for example, you can generate YouTube thumbnails.
That was my next question, because that is the bane of my existence, YouTube thumbnails. So I was like, oh, you've got my attention now. I want to check this out. And also YouTube Shorts, does it do that? I suppose you could take the Reels similar to Instagram. Or...
Yeah, for sure. So because we generate quite a few, I'm never one to be like, to your point, if it's really good, if it's a really good clip, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this across the different platforms that I'm on. But you can mix and match. One might do, you're like, oh, this is going to go really well on Shorts. This one's going to go really well on Instagram. This one, and so you actually have choice to then disseminate, according to your own strategy.
Because I've seen some do this and some don't. So like, we're videoing for everyone right now. We're videoing on Zoom, so we're like side by side. Does it automatically? I've seen some software.
Yeah.
put one on top of
Yeah,
the
it'll
other.
either go, make it vertical, or it'll
Yes.
go, it'll have speakers. So it'll actually just hone in on whoever the speaker
Ah,
is.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've used different platforms before and some of them don't do that. So you don't have the vertical. So it's like, well, this is useless to me to use for a reel. Or it
Yeah.
does have the vertical, but then yeah, there's different texts and stuff because you can do it like via Canva, which just introduce a whole nother step and then it takes time. And that's not intelligently lazy. That's just
No.
inefficient.
Yes. Yeah. That's neither intelligent or lazy.
Yes. But to your point, like for me, the podcasts I listen to are often because someone's recommended an episode, that's primarily, or because when I'm doing stuff and I've caught a snippet and I'm like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I want to hear that. So there was one by The Diary of a CEO. This is the snippet I caught. Basically, he was saying, if you pee in a glass of water and then add sugar, the sugar doesn't remove the pee. And I was like, what on earth are they talking about? I need to hear more. And they were talking about like positive well-being, and if you're like your affirmations don't cure everything, which has totally got my attention because I was like, yeah, I think affirmations are
Mm.
spraying turds with glitter. You got to clear out the turd. So that's why I like the pee in the thing. But that's the power of that fishing or that little snippet that's like, I want to hear more of
Yes.
this, or like, no. So either way, like there's been some I've listened to, I've been like, that's just totally a no from me. But you
Yeah.
know, because it can be an investment to give someone 20, 40 an hour of your time when you
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything about them. So the little snippets I think
100%.
are really powerful. But to your point too, when I'm utilizing those in my business, I don't post them for engagement. Like sometimes people are like, oh, you don't get comments or anything. I'm like, good. Not that I
It's
don't
like, I
like to
don't want to
listen,
engage
whatever.
back.
But it's kind of like the idea for me, from my point of view, is people listen to it and like, I'm in, I've got to go find this, or I'm
Yeah.
not. And then
Yeah.
make it easy for them to find it. So there's a click or a link or whatever. But as you said, some people, they love to engage on social media or they have a team who does it for them. And it's always amuses me greatly when I am familiar with a person, their style, their way of speaking, their mannerisms, and then I know someone else is managing their social media because the way they answer in that is totally different. So, you know, if
Yeah.
eventually, and one time I did hire a social media manager for a little while, but I always made sure she put Sam in the brackets Team Sue's after, so you knew it wasn't me. Because it's kind of weird where you
Yes.
think you're having this conversation with someone and then you get on a discovery call or whatever and they've got no idea because you've been engaging with their team, which is I'm not opposed to, but I
Yes.
do believe in transparency so you know who you're talking to.
100%. Yeah. It is always a bit jarring when it's like, oh, wait, that's not who I thought it is.
Yeah.
So
And
for
another
sure.
point to your point too, I imagine, I don't know, I'm making an assumption here, feel free to correct me, that Capsho and stuff is for, you know, content creators, like as in coaches, people who are using their social media to bring in leads or potential leads to their business. And I think this is
Yeah.
where we differentiate, or we fail to differentiate. I'm not an influencer. I don't need a
Hmm.
million followers or 100,000 likes or all these comments. And I think sometimes this is where people get
Yes.
confused. You don't
Yeah.
need that much engagement or that big of an audience to have a thriving business. And it depends what's thriving to you. I want to replace my 9 to 5 income. Done. I'm happy. I don't
Yeah.
want, well, I'm not saying I don't want to be, but I'm not like, I earn 7 figures in my sleep or all this like nonsense. To me, that's going into like influencer territory. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes people forget that. It's like, oh, you don't have that big of a list or that big of a following. But
Yeah.
the people who follow you, engage with you, and buy from you and know, you know, what to what end. So I think sometimes when people are like, I'm not getting all this engagement or follows or whatever, it's like those aren't, they're vanity stats to me. Am I getting sales? People buying
Yeah.
my stuff, you know?
100%. Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. To Capture are for entrepreneurs first who create long form audio video content. So you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, or you just do training videos or whatever that is. And yeah, that's why we actually have some of these inbuilt marketing strategies. So, you know, again, like going back to Katie Brinkley's 4 post social media strategy, like that is not an influencer strategy. Like it's, if you want to become an influencer, that is not it. That is literally a strategy, as I said, to like get people in your audience to raise your hand and be like, I care about this, to action. That's kind of the journey you're taking them on. So you're 100% right when you say you do not need a big audience. I fell into that trap as well, like ages ago, where I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go viral. We talk about going viral like it's the holy grail of like making a ton of money, and it's really not. Like to your point, you just find the audience that loves you and knows you and will buy anything that you put out. Like we have Capshovians, some members who are like that. They're like, I'm just giving you money because I know that whatever it is that you're selling right now is like it's going to be good. It's going to be what I need. Like they just love everything that we do. And that's kind of like, I feel like that's the holy grail, really, when you can build an audience and you can build a community like that. That's really what we should be aiming for sure.
We think about any people who are listening who are readers. I'm an avid reader. If an author I love is putting a book out, I don't read the title or the blog or whatever. I'm like, oh, they've got a new book. Take my money.
Yes, right? Exactly.
It's like you're building the audience of raving fans, but not in a like immature or ineffective or you're going to drop the ball kind of way. But like you've built your brand that you deliver quality, and people who know that whatever the next thing's going to be is awesome. Yeah. But the other thing too, just before we start to wrap up, something you said, and like linking back to ages ago about, saying no and having boundaries and focusing your time. Very recently, I was part of a bundle. I normally stay away from these type things because I have, I'm the nope coach and they can be overwhelming. But I think, in anything in business, if you choose your strategy, so if you listen to this and you're like, I need to know more about Capsho, I totally do. And then you're like, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to invest in this, and I'm going to use this platform for however long to give it time to work, because nothing works overnight. But I think the other thing too is we listen to a lot of podcasts or we attend a lot of things, or, to this bundle, back to this point. So there was 70 products in this bundle and it was $9. It wasn't a free one. The reason I contributed to it is because each of the products had to have been sold at least 10 times independently. So it wasn't a let's bundle together a lot of crap and then put a price point on it. Because we see that, especially Black Friday or Boxing Day or whatever it is. So that's what had my interest. And each of the products were low cost products between like $9 and $11 each. But you got all of them for $9. And what fascinated me was how many people got so overwhelmed and bent out of shape and all this sort of stuff. I was like, just because there's 70 products there doesn't mean you need to grab all of them. What I loved about the person, Lizzie Goddard, who facilitated it, is she made this really nice spreadsheet that had the person's name, the product's name, a brief description, signed up, yes or no, and the link. And so then I could go through and go, okay, so what am I focusing on right now? I'm kind of curious about threads. There was a product about threads because I'm not using it, but it's in the back of my mind. So I grabbed that one. There was something or other about thumbnails or something, to your point, Capsho is like, because anyway, so I was like, I'll grab that. And I deliberately said to myself, I can have 4. Like there might be 70 there, but I can choose 4. And sign up to those 4 and work my way through them, rather than grab all 70, get inbox overwhelm, and then 6 months from now be going, who's that? When they turn up in my inbox again. And I think for anything, part of being intelligently lazy is choosing the thing you want to focus on, doubling down on that, and kind of having your blinkers on so you don't hear all the other noise, because there's always going to be no shortage of people telling you this works. And to your point, they all work if you work them. But if you're not working them because you're always signing up for the next thing, you've got a bright, shiny object syndrome problem.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Preach. Because like seriously, I'm like all of that you said, that was me like 3-4 years ago, where I was just give me all the things. And just you not only get overwhelmed, but I think what happens is that you then start to resent, and it's not like their fault, right? Like it's these 70 contributors, they're just doing a really good thing, but then you start to resent them. Because it's like, because I didn't have the time to consume it and to implement it and make it work. And it's like, no one, like why? And we go back to energy. Like, why would you want to put yourself in that state? Like, it just makes no sense for anyone, it's least of all for you. So I think that what you're saying is absolutely like, give yourself boundaries, like tell yourself that even if it's for X period of time, I'm just going to like do this 1, 2 or 2 things. And just work the heck out of it. That is, I think, honestly, I would say that is actually the path to the gold at the end of the rainbow.
And embrace JOMO, joy of missing out. not
Yeah.
FOMO,
I love
fear of
it.
missing out.
Yeah.
Because there's like 60 other courses I didn't sign up for in the back of my mind. What if this is the right one or whatever? I honestly don't have that anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
say 6 months from now, I find this other course and I'm like, oh, I should have done this. I'll give the person the $9 and I'll pay full price for it. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you sign
Yes.
up for all these things because I don't want to miss out and it's such a good deal. But is it a good deal if you don't actually have the bandwidth or the energy?
Yeah.
And I loved your point. Like you sometimes do kind of feel resentful. He's that person in my inbox again with a stupid course that I never had time for. And it's like, yeah, I didn't make time for it. It's not the courses. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we go to wrap up, Deirdre, let us know about all the things that you do, about Capsho, how we try, like, I assume, is there a trial? I don't know, making assumptions.
There is. Yeah, yes. So Capsho, so if you want to go check it out, our website is Capsho, capsho.com. So you can learn all about it. But essentially, as I said, it's pretty simple by design. So you upload your audio or video file, and literally in minutes, it will create a whole bunch of content for you. And you can decide, you can pick and choose what it is that you want to, again, back to boundaries, like what platforms you want to be on, what content you want to be creating. But in short, like a lot of the text-based content it creates, so social media posts, LinkedIn newsletter, blog posts, it does for podcasters, it does their show notes, titles. It also does YouTube descriptions. We have video clipping capability in there. And we also have image generation. And so it's pretty simple. It does what it says. And then what I'd love, Suzanne, is to offer anyone in your community 50% off forever. So it's usually $99. It'll be $48.50 forever each month. So yeah, that's what we'll do.
Sweet. I'll go and check that out. I'll be first in line. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. I love the ethos of what you do. I love the, intelligently lazy and choosing the platforms that you want to get behind, because I think too, like people might say content is king or whatever, but if you just shove it on the platform and go on your merry way, if that platform requires engagement and you're like, well, this isn't working, it doesn't matter if you're not there, like if you're not behind it. So which choosing to restrict to, like, I don't even have LinkedIn anymore. Not only do I not have it, I deleted my profile entirely because I was like, I don't want to spend any energy here. It's gone. Instagram, I've got a 9 grid. So it's like, this is the customer's journey. I do put reels up. So if I check out Capsho, I'm curious about the reels, but the reels for me are shorts to lead them to the show. And then if people want to talk to me, I love to talk to people. Send me an email because then I can control it to when I respond. I don't like, as I said, DMs, but I love using your tech or using your thing to repurpose in the way that's going to grow for your content and your goals rather than this scattergun approach, which just seems energetically exhausting.
Yes, 100%.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.